Live, baby. Hello, lovely Gary Mills. Oh, do you know something? I've just got a YouTube notification to tell me that Crafty Monkeys have gone live. That's because I've subscribed and hit the bell, Gary. That's what people need to do.
They do. Hit the bell, subscribe, like. Don't forget to always like these videos because we put time and effort into these and we like to know that you like them.
We do. And yeah, it's just literally come off my phone saying Crafty Monkeys are now live. So there you go. So that's it. It's good to know that I am live. So hello, lovely YouTuber. If you're watching us live, if you're watching us recorded, no problem whatsoever. Lovely Gary. There he is. So we do this on a Friday, Tea Time Tutorials it's called. And if you want to look in our playlist, oh my goodness me, you will find a bit of free motion. You'll find a bit of art. You'll find some mindfulness. And today we're talking about the fashion industry and we're talking about sizing and perhaps the crafty little tricks of the trade that perhaps allegedly, possibly manufacturers may implement, maybe to trick us. Anyway, that is coming up in a few moments' time, but do have a look at the playlist. If you are a serious, if you're a serious sewist, then do have a look in the rest of the playlist because we've got all sorts of wonderful sewing videos from lots of lovely, great people, including Mr. Gary Mills himself, who is making, well, one of my favorite projects of yours was the brush holder where you could put all your pens or brushes in or makeup brushes. I think you could make
really
one of those
handy
for anybody, really handy.
Yeah.
And then we've got people like Janet Clare and Sarah Payne, and there's so many great people on there who are doing like quilt blocks and projects and techniques. There's hundreds of videos. So do have a look in the rest of the playlist. But Gary and I on a Friday, we try to go live every Friday at 5 o'clock. If it's not live, it will be loaded on a Friday. And so we'd love to hear you if you want to ask any comments, or of course, when the video's over, you can leave comments and we come back and answer them for you. But we always have a little bit of mindfulness at the beginning. And then we have a lovely little exercise today, as I say, to chat about the fashion industry and dress sizing. And this came about because here it is. Gary made this for me. And it's for a class of hours. If you're watching it live, this is happening in a couple of weeks. You could join us on Zoom for that class. If you're watching it after the event, this class of how to make this from a t-shirt is going to be in our online shop, which is, of course, craftymonkies.com. I'll put the link below. But the conversation came about because apparently, that mannequin behind Gary is me. That's me. My measurements. That's me. So we were talking about sizing, and then Gary said, you know, this will be a really interesting conversation for YouTube. So here we are doing it. But before we do it, I'm going to do a little bit of mindfulness with our Gary, as we always do, just to get the little cogs whirring and perhaps a bit of positivity. If you want to skip it, I'll put a time code underneath. If it's recorded and you're watching it, you will see a time code. Ignore this bit, click about the fashion industry chat. But first of all, we're going to have a chat. So I'm just opening my thing so I can see any chat comments that come through. Do have a chat with us in the chat box area. We'd love to hear from you. So here we go. People will now go sewing. And now they're staying with us if they're staying with us. So lovely, Gary. Now, it's not a quote today, but I have thought about it because I heard something the other day. And I thought this was really interesting. In that, and I've been talking to a few people this week and I've seen this happening and I've quoted this back to them and they've gone, that's very true. And I thought, right, I'm going to use that this Friday. This is about judgment of ourselves. And here at Crafty Monkeys, when we do our sewing classes and things, a lot of ladies will do some sewing or something and they'll hold it up and they'll go, well, I'll show you, but it's not very good. It's really not very good. And You know, why do we do this to ourselves? We really should not judge ourselves. Let's face it, there's enough people in the world who will judge us. So don't judge ourselves. But here's the sort of, not the quote, but the sort of phrase that I always remember is that if a child came to you, and I think sometimes we are judging ourselves, it's our inner child that we're judging because that's where a lot of our problems start in childhood. But if a child came to us and held something up and said, this is not very good, would you go, yeah, it's not. It's really not very good. You wouldn't judge them, would you? And if your best friend came to you, but further than that, not just something you've made, if you've made a mistake in your life, which I believe, are there mistakes? I think we learn from everything. So is anything ever a mistake? Maybe you don't do it again. But I think if we do things that perhaps we're not proud of, or we make a mistake or whatever, and we really judge ourselves, I always think you should imagine if your friend came to you and said, I've just done this, would you say to them, well, you're clearly a horrible person? you're a horrible person for what you've done, unless it's something really horrendous. But you know, oh, I've just shouted at a man in the car park because of la 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 la, and then you get angry with yourself because you've done it. But as a friend, you would go, well, were you having a bad day? Were you stressed? Did you sleep well? It's like, no, I didn't. I couldn't get to sleep. I'm so tired. Why are you so tired? You would be kind. So why are we not kind to ourselves, Gary? Because we should be kind to ourselves. Of course, you take responsibility for what you've done. I'm not saying that you roll over people and you don't care. Of course you care, but I think you have to acknowledge your mistake. Probably think to yourself, well, I'll try not to do that again. But don't criticize yourself so heavily and pull yourself to pieces, because you wouldn't do that to someone else. You would listen to someone else, and we need to listen to ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's really good, Rachel, because actually we would listen to a friend and actually say, actually, well, you probably had a really bad day or something like that. But we don't do that to ourselves, do we? We don't look at ourselves in the mirror and just say, look, that wasn't that great, what you've just done. But you know why you've done it. You've had this has happened to you, that's happened. Who would not forgive you for doing that? But you don't have to do it again. You just need to understand why it happened. And you're right about that first part when you were talking about how many students and people that work with me as a teacher who then produce something and instantly, oh, it's no good. Oh, mine's not turned out very well. I'm not pleased. And it's great. Quite often, it's the first time they've had a go at creating something or that method, that way of working. So it's not going to be as good as mine. I've had a little bit more practice, but it is good because they've actually started doing it and they can only improve on it. So yeah, I don't know. It's almost as if, and you're right, there's that inner child thing working where perhaps we don't want to be criticized. So instantly we say, like put it out like, no, it's no good. I know you're going to say it's no good. So you don't have to say any more than that. And as a professional, no one would say, no, that's no good. What you might want to do is say, it's really great. I would always find the positive, like you've started this new process, you've done this, and this. Had you thought about doing that? Have you, next time you do it, introduce that or have a go or keep practicing? So yeah, that is really strange. And I do, like you've seen it, I see it with people, not just in art and design and textile courses, but in life they can do that as well. It's, in fact, what we're going to move on to is about the size of ourselves or the way we look. We instantly will say to people, oh, of course I can't wear that because I'm far too big, or I'm not the right size, or I'm not young enough, or I'm not old enough, or so again we are putting that judgment out before someone can say, actually, that would really suit you and that would look really, really nice on you.
Yeah,
we do it all the time, and I think we need to check ourselves on it, really.
We do, and we just need to be kinder to ourselves, because yes, there are people out there with huge issues who've been through terrible traumas, and they do behave very, very badly, and you do things that are is it reprehensible, irreprehensible, when you can't qualify what someone has done. Of course we know about things, but we're talking about, as you say, criticizing ourselves and not being kind to ourselves. Yeah. And I think as well, when you're on your life, I think life is a journey, and I think the main thing is to start seeing the patterns of behavior. And so if you recognize that you've done something that perhaps you've done before and you vowed never to do it again, the great thing is that you've actually recognized that pattern of behavior now. And that's part of the healing process. It's the people who don't recognize their behavior, who never think about it. That's where the problem is. But I think if you can recognize patterns of behavior, you can recognize things in yourself, if you can recognize self-critic, the self-critic in your head, then you can start to heal that for yourself. And that's what we need to do. We've talked about being kind to other people.
Just one thing I will, and I've experienced this, is the delusional person. So you get someone completely the other side of the spectrum, who is quite delusional that they're really fantastic at something. And this is really great. And you need to give me much more praise than what you're doing at this moment. And so how do you deal with someone like that? So again, you go along a little bit down the line, like, yes, this is really, really good, but I would have done this, or perhaps you need to consider that. Again, when you've got a delusional person, it's actually harder to work with or harder to bring back to earth, get their feet back on the ground, than someone that perhaps lacks a little bit of confidence, who doesn't believe in what they've done and says that straight away. And so yeah, you have got the other swing to that spectrum completely, and
Yeah.
that's not easy to deal with.
Yeah. So we need to be on a level, and
Yeah, I think we need to be fair on ourselves.
Just be fair on ourselves. And the final thing is, I saw something today which was great, and it was about whenever you look in the mirror and go, I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too that, to do this, to do this, to do that. Never do that, because in 10 years, you will look back at the photograph of yourself and you'll go, whoa, I look good because I'm older now than I was. And so you have to imagine yourself looking back at yourself and go, yes, I'm still all right. I'm still hanging in there. Just, yeah, be kind to yourselves, people. Be kind to yourself.
Exactly.
Right. So lovely, Gary, let's now talk about the fashion industry, because what on earth is going on? And, from my perspective, this is where I want to start it off with. As a lady who shops in clothes shops, it is it's infuriating when a lot of it I do online now, and you go online, of course, you're looking at a picture and then it says size, your size. And then now I really don't know what to choose, because I don't mind talking about my sizings here. I used to go to French Connection many years. I've not been in there for a while, actually, because there isn't one near me now. But in London, when I was in London, I loved French Connection. I did like their clothing very much. But I always found that when I went to French Connection, I was always, this is me personally, I'm not talking about anybody else, but for me personally, I was always a size 6 or an 8 in French Connection. But in Marks and Spencer's, I could be a 12. Yes. And I used to think, well, have I suddenly gained a few dress sizes in 4 days or 3 hours because I was just in French Connection, now in Marks and Spencer? What's going on? And right. I do think it was interesting what you said to me in private, which we'll pick up on this as well, was that, it did work on me, Gary, psychologically, because I did used to like going in French Connection, because I would be in a size 6 or an 8, because I'd be like, oh, I lost a little bit of weight, girlfriend. And we're not talking about weight, because I'm not saying if you're a size 16, you need to get down to a size 6. That's ridiculous. I think whatever size you are, if you're happy with yourself, you should be that size. If you're a size 24 and you're happy, you be a size 24. We're not talking about that, but we're talking about that psychological effect of, because we are all so ingrained with this whole sizing thing, and then magazines and models, blah, blah, and you should be this and you should be that. That I do think there is a psychological thing, and if you are, for me, if I did feel like, oh, perhaps I've lost a couple of pounds, then I sort of would feel better about myself. This is when I was much younger. I've kind of got over that now, but when I was in my sort of 20s, that's how I felt, because I felt like I was sort of conforming to these magazines or these models, because I read that they were a size 6. Oh, I'm like Kate Moss, I'm like Kate. Ridiculous. But it did work psychologically. So that was my start of the conversation, Gary.
It's, the whole thing about sizing is a complete, and has become, I think, with other like advents of social media and magazines and a body image, it's become a real big thing. And it's an absolute minefield. And I mean, there's a lot of different facets that hopefully we can just talk about in the next little while. We're not going forever. But, again, you just saying your 2 examples, Zara and Marks and Spencer's.
French Connection, Marks and Spencer's.
French Connection.
Yeah. But Zara is similar as well. Zara is completely off the scale, because I know Trini does a lot of, Trini Woodall does a lot of shopping in Zara. She's forever berating them and talking about them, because, she probably in Marks and Spencer's would be maybe a 10 or a 12. And then in Zara, she's in large, sometimes XL for a pair of trousers. She's like, what's going on, Zara? So, yeah.
So the whole sizing, you think there would be a uniformity across the world, or just people in the garment manufacturing industry, you think there'd be some sort of uniformity that would help everybody, that if you're a 12 going in one shop here in the UK and a 12 going in another one, it's the same. If you go into Europe, or you go to Australia, or if you go to America, you'd expect it all be the same. But it's not at all. Back in 1958, the national, and I've written this down here because I've done my homework, and I wanted to get it specific. The National Bureau of Standards invented back in 1958, the new sizing system. So this was a sizing system that took into account how you were, the sizes, but from, were you short, regular, or tall? Did you have lower body girth? Was it a plus or minus? Was you, where were you? Body measurements from neck, bust, waist, hip. And that's how they set out these standards from sort of 6 to 8. And then we've got 8 till 10, 12, and 14. They all go up, which you must take note of. They go up in 2s. So you don't get a size 7. You don't get a size 9. This is in the UK and other countries. And that's because, again, that's a psychological thing. So you fit into a pigeonhole rather than saying, right, okay, you're buying a size 10. And but then you might aspire to be a size 8. If you're just there in size 9, it's not going to make much of a difference. You don't necessarily, if you're a size 10, want to then be a size 12, because that's gone up. I've gone up 2 sizes, but there isn't 2 sizes in between. There's just like one set of sizes. They've just missed out the numbers.
Yes.
So so the other thing, there was this standard that people tried to adhere to. Now that was back in 1958. Now, if you look at the figure and the fashion in 1958, it's completely different to what it is now. And in fact, if you look at the body shape, and I'm speaking really about female body shape and men's, we're much better fed than we were back just after the war. Post-war children, probably born in the war in the late 30s, early 40s, and by 1958, they wanted to wear clothes. They were like teenagers in their early 20s, but they haven't been fed as well as perhaps we are today. And so their body shape was different. One, the women particularly had much smaller waists.
Yes.
And actually purter bosoms. And that was down to underwear. So they had
they had the sort of pointy, didn't they?
Yeah. Yes. So their underwear was different. There was not really all this sort of like soft latex and these sports bras or anything like that. I don't know if any of you will remember, you might even might have warned someone out there, a roll-on girdle. Do you remember a roll-on girdle?
Yes, yes.
My nan had a roll-on girdle, so you rolled on this. It was a bit like the next step on from a corset, which gave you that lovely hourglass figure. It also stopped clothes, what we call clipping, onto the sides of your legs or to your hips and your thighs, because it was sort of rolled down and it gave a nice smooth outline. Today we have magic knickers, and I can talk a little bit about magic knickers in a minute, but I won't go into that now. Okay, so that's what was sort of tried to set in stone, but we have veered off from that completely. It started off okay, but I'll just throw in there, now we all know Marilyn Monroe.
Yes.
In that sizing system in 1958, Marilyn Monroe was a size 16. So she was a size 16.
Now, is that an American 16 or UK 16?
No, a British. Well, so far in my research, it was a British size 16.
Okay.
Then, not now, but then.
Yeah.
So if we look at a size 12 here, so a size 12, this size 12, so this mannequin is near enough to a 1958 size. So it says size 12 on its neck. And when I put the tape measure around it, I'm not pulling it tight. I've got give, so I've got movement, because you don't wear garments that are really tight, because that's like wearing your own corset. It's got movement. So if we look at the bust is 35 inches. So this is size 12, bust is 35 inches. The waist is 28 inches and the hip is 37.
Yes.
Okay, so that is a size 12. Would that be a size 12 now? Rachel, you're near enough this size, because I know your measurements. You're near enough to this size. What size are you buying in the shops?
An 8 or a 10.
An 8 or a 10. So it's dropped down.
Yes.
Almost like 4 sizes.
Yeah, because when you said to me, oh, you're this mannequin, and then you said, and what size do you think it is? And I said, I don't know. And you said a size 12. Well, if I buy a size 12 on, any of the things I'm looking at, it's like, what's it called? It's just gone out of my brain. ASOS, ASOS.
Yes,
yes. Different brands, don't they? And you'll put in a size 12, it'd be huge on me. So when you said that's a size 12, I was like, what is going on? So these manufacturers, when they are, scrimping, like with Zara, for example, and I'm not picking on Zara, I mean, I adore Zara, but, Trini's gone on about their sizing. So what is it? Why is it that they are doing a size 10 or a 12 trouser in somewhere else is now an XXL in Zara? Is it something to do with saving costs on materials or fabrics, or what is it? Who are they modeling it on?
So there's a term for this, and it's called vanity sizing. So it's about vanity sizing. And again, you've also got to think about the demographic, the type of people that are using that shop as well. So if you're going to somewhere, say I've got my example would be Topshop. You go to Topshop to buy something. The demographic that is a much younger, sort of like young teenager, a very early 20s. So the sizing there would be, even though it was sort of like you're in Topshop and it's designed for young people, so it would actually be made up small. Even though you're buying, say you bought a size 10 in Topshop, it would be small because the demographic it's aimed at is for younger people, but you're slightly older. If you went to Marks and Spencer's and you bought that same size, it would be bigger because the demographic is that older, more sort of like sort of middle-aged person. I'm saying that because but in Marks and Spencer's there is some really nice fashion if you look out for it. But so again, you've got to think about the customer that would majority do that. The shop itself or the company also think about where they manufacture their clothes. So they would say they design in this country. So I could be here in my studio, I could be designing clothes. I could be designing clothes I could do it for Marks and Spencer's or Topshop, but I'm not making it in this country. I'm making it it could be Bangladesh, it could be parts of China, it could be India, and they're manufactured out there. I don't cut out a pattern here and send the pattern over to there. I just send designs. I send a template, front and back, maybe some technical drawings. So where does the zip go? Where does the popper go? And I'd maybe give a few measurements, but then I send it over to them, who then make it up in samples. So they sample it. But they don't have a UK or a Western person try it on over there, which is called a fit model. They have an Asian person, if it's being made in Asia. They have an Asian person, and an Asian person's made different than us. They are slimmer, they are more narrower, they might be more slimmer in the trunk, or they might be, shorter in the leg, but thinner on the thigh. And so therefore then it all like slightly starts like, well, that's not what we intended, but we've had that now manufactured. So now what size do we put with that? So even for me, I bought a pair of trousers, roughly got the waist size right. But then when I tried to pull them over my legs, now I'm not big, but I couldn't get them over. I couldn't comfortably get these, like, okay, they were drain pipe trousers, but they didn't have any elastic in those, because now I think they put a lot of elastic out because of the problem. I couldn't get them over my calves. And I haven't got big calves. And so they've offset that now in men's trousers. You'll find, or in trousers, there's a lot of elastine and stretch fabrics being used because it does give a little bit. So though you might want a much more tailored trouser, if you put a bit of an elastine in the fabric, it's more forgiving. So you can get away with a little bit more undulating in sizes. So you've got the manufacture problem. So where it's being manufactured. And I will just point out here, though it says the manufacturer on the label where you think it's being done, could be Bangladesh, it could be outsourced into Korea. So South Korea could be making those clothes. It then comes back through Bangladesh. Bangladesh might put a button on or do a bit of finishing, may trim off all the loose threads. Then the last person it's gone to, then it says it's manufactured in Bangladesh. So it's moving all over the place. So when you've got other languages, other cultures that are all imparting into the clothing manufacture, it's no brainer to think if things are going to go wrong, they're not going to work out.
And that's why it's impossible to work out what your size is. But that makes me think that what we need to do is stop stressing and worrying about our sizes. You know, if you see a nice skirt and it's just to kind of look at the size, hold it against yourself. Don't look at what the size. Oh, it's a size 16. I can't wear that because it's I want to be size 12. No, you just basically get things that fit you, because none of it is real. We've
also realize where you're buying it from. So I mean, I think Topshop and those younger person shops have got a responsibility, and they seem to be producing the smaller sizes and the smaller clothes and convincing those young people that they're smaller than what they are. Whereas Marks and Spencer's are a little bit more sensible and tend to make up a little bit bigger than perhaps at other places. And so, and I think because their customer is much more, maybe more grounded and more, and maybe as we get more mature, we can accept that we slightly get a little bit bigger. Maybe that's what I'm saying. And that's from my own personal point of view. I mean, I was always when I was very young, you know, in my teens, I was size 28 waist. I then went to 30. I'm 32 when I buy trousers, but when I measure my waist, and I know where my waist is. It's not on my hips. It's where my hands go across my belly button there. I am not 32. It can range 33, 34. Depends how much bread I've eaten, obviously. But a 32 fits me quite comfortably. So what's going on there? The pair of trousers are saying that the waist is 32. I measure my own waist with these trousers that fit very comfortably, and I'm actually bigger than a 32. So are they making me feel a little bit more slimmer? Are they making me think, no, I've not got that middle-aged spread? Maybe they are. Is that good for me or not? Or do I need to face reality? I don't know. But it works the other way, where it can actually then start to question someone that's completely healthy, a normal body size, and maybe they've bought a garment or they've had a garment that they get into, and it's a slightly bigger than what they're used to. Do they then go on a crash diet, which isn't really necessary? Do they then start stressing that they're getting larger because they're getting older? I don't know. So I think, as we were saying, I think what we need to do is actually try and not think about sizing. A good idea, if it really gets on you, is cut the bloody label out of your garment.
Exactly.
Just cut the size out.
Exactly. And don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Just cut it out so it doesn't remind you, because, you know, and again, those the coat hangers with the bloody I'm swearing. I'm very sorry.
It's all right. I think that's accepted on YouTube, that word.
But you get the hangers. Oh, would you like the hanger? It's got the blooming number of what the size is on it. No, I won't have the hanger with that size on it. Take that away.
No.
Cut the labels out.
And you know,
I was just going to
say, Gary, and I would always say, you know, you should get something that fits you. Don't squeeze into something that is the size that you want to be, that will then make you feel horrible when you're in it. So if you have to go up a size in a dress, but it feels comfortable and looks fabulous, don't give about the sizing.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter, because what we're proving here is none of it makes sense. None of it.
It does
and
not.
If you look at Marilyn Monroe is a size 16. And now everybody is, well, I'm not saying everybody, because other people watch this going, I don't aspire to be a size 8. But what I'm saying is that we know what we're saying. There was certainly a time when a lot of people did what you had the whole...
and if, you know, with Marilyn Monroe, yes, she had quite a, she had a pert bosom. She had a tiny waist, really, and that's what gave her that really like that hourglass figure, which was attractive. But within areas, she was a size 16. I just wanted to say also that obviously we're talking about when you go into a shop and you try those clothes on, which is great if you've got that opportunity. And yes, when you wear clothes, never have clothes that clip, that pull and stretch across parts of your body. It just makes the thing worse. It's far better to have something that's going to skim over your body. I mentioned magic knickers, and you know, you don't have to have some sort of reinforced garment that's going to push it, like wherever you want it to go. It's either going to go below the knicker line or above it, so you get these rolls of fat. In fact, just a really easy, comfy pair with a little bit of spandex in there just gives a really nice finish to a garment. I mean, you can even get them for men, where you just looks so the trousers look better, your shirt fits better, just by having, you know, a good pair of your special knickers for a special occasion. But never go to the point where you can hardly breathe, and what it's done is just disperse excess skin and fabric either above or below, because that isn't going to be attractive either.
No.
Not at all. The other thing is people that are one size on the top and one size on the bottom, or vice versa, you know, and that is difficult. How do you know, you might be a size 16 on the top, but you're a size maybe a 12 or across the hip, or the other way around. And that's why when that happens, people end up buying separate. So how do you get around that? Well, you're not necessarily going to be able to get something completely off the peg and wear it straight away. What a good thing to do is either find a good tailoress or a tailor that can do alterations for you. And it's always, if you are in that position where you are two different sizes, one on top of the other, obviously speak to them and get their suggestion of what would be the best thing. But my advice would be, whenever you alter something to make it fit you better, it's always easier to make something smaller than it is to make it bigger. So if you are going to the shops and squeezing in to something that really isn't that is not going to look flattering, you need to buy the next size up and then just have a little bit just skimmed off of it, and it'll look so much better, because you can't find that excess fabric to make it bigger. You know, again, back to manufacturing, they use the minutest seam allowance to save money. So when you sew on your sewing machine at home and cut your pattern out, usually the average is about, well 5/8 or 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. When you look at manufactured clothes, it could be 0.5 centimeter or 1 centimeter seam allowance, which is usually overlocked. So it's a fraction. So there's no extra fabric to let that out at all. If you're buying online, what do you do there? You can't try it on. You have to go by. So one thing that I've learned before, and I bought garments online and bits and pieces, always read the feedback from other people. So if the feedback's saying that they've had this, they're usually a size medium, but they found that actually the large fits better, then go with what they're saying. You know, you have a little read what other people say. You have a look at their returns policy, because you don't want to end up with having to pay to send things back. But if you don't, what a good point would be to actually, if you're one size and you think, oh, I might need the next size up, get the 2 sizes and then send one back, the one that doesn't fit so well.
Yes,
so
and I will say as well, what a lot of these things, and just have to sort of read into it a bit, because I was buying online a couple of weeks ago, actually, and the company I was buying from said, you know, what size are you? But actually there was another thing next to it that said, find your size.
Yes.
So I clicked on there, and then they asked for your measurements, and then it was like a sliding scale, which is really clever, and you put in your measurements. However, you know, then they asked you for your height. So I was like, okay, fine. Then they asked me for my age. And underneath it said, why are we asking you? Because when you get to a certain age, your weight is spread differently. Now, I know what you were saying about the middle-age spread thing, but I just thought, you know something, if I put my age in, according to you, I'm like a barrel in the middle. But that hasn't happened to me, because I have always exercised and gone to the gym and stuff. So I thought that was a bit silly, really, because, and I tried it. I did put in my age and it gave me a bigger size. So I just took out my age and it gave me a lower size. I went for the lower size, because I wanted a lower size, but I thought that's not right. I know I haven't put it round the middle. Got the thing, fitted perfectly. So it fitted apparently a 38-year-old, not my age, which is quite a bit more.
That made you feel better.
It did make me feel better. So I am 38 apparently. But you know, that's the thing, forget the aging. But if you can find that sizing thing, that putting the actual measurements of you in it, that was actually very good. But I think you're right.
I think definitely use discernment. You've got to use discernment. You've got to know if they're asking, I'm going down the line of asking, like you said, and you think, well, actually, I know that I exercise, I'm in quite good shape for my age, then obviously you can use discernment and then change that thing. The other thing that I wanted to mention is the other route that you can go to is you can make your own clothes, which we do on Crafty Monkeys, as you know, and as I teach people how to make their own clothes. But I tell you one thing to remember, and again, it's about charts. And you might buy a commercial pattern, a pattern that shows you how to make a dress, a skirt, or whatever. And there's always a chart on the back. Now, I know so many people just go directly to that dress size at the top. So there'll be a chart and it'll be sort of like, it'll probably do neck, bust, and different measurements through the body. Do those measurements. You either stick to inches or you can stick to centimeters. It's entirely down to you, but do them. And then where you come in, so on the grid, just put a little circle, by, and you'll see that part of you are being at one size, part of you are being another, whatever. Remember what I said, you always go for the larger size, because you can, especially if you're making it yourself, you can trim it down, but do not go directly, size 12. I'm a size 12. No, because I think you'll be really surprised that the sizing on those suddenly like, oh, I'm a size 16. I said, this is just a number. That's just a number. Ignore that. And I can see, I get people to sew and we've got their patterns and they're working it all out. And suddenly, after loving this pattern, when they see that actually the size they're going to cut out is 16, I don't like it. It's not going to be nice for me.
Which is crazy, isn't it?
And that's where I see that psychological thing starting to work. And I'm thinking, whoa, stop. Don't go down that like a rabbit hole. Don't go down there, because honestly, you'll be able to make yourself a beautiful garment that'll fit you with one size on the top, one on the bottom, and you'll be able to make it yourself. But just start with the bigger one, and then we adjust the pattern, We can nip a little bit off the sides, and then even if we need to add a little bit on the hip, we can still add on a little bit on the sides.
Yes.
So that is one way that you can get over this sizing problem. It's when you start making clothes for yourself, but that's not always convenient, and it is, it's time consuming, and it relatively, if you think about it, clothes are really quite cheap today. They're almost like throwaway.
Yes.
But there's no point. What a waste. Even though these clothes are quite cheap, what's the point of buying clothes that don't fit you? Or you wear it once, you feel uncomfortable in it, and you're throwing it away. So the landfill with garments is incredible, absolutely incredible. So again, we should be very cautious or careful of how we are consuming garments, just as we consume foods and plastics and things like that. There is just as much landfill of garments than there is everything else that we tend to throw away in this society.
Yeah, and I do think if you've got some really good, I mean, when I lived in London, there were some amazing vintage shops that you could go to. And, if you are in a kind of built up area, perhaps where there are some really big shops like that. And when I say vintage, that doesn't just mean that you're buying things from the 1920s or that you're buying, outrageous clothing. But if you just go to like the Marie Curie shops or the whatever, you can get some amazing buys in there. So if we're talking about sustainable fashion, and then once again, Gary, if you buy something that is too big for you, I mean, I bought a coat once, a 1950s coat, and then took it to a dressmaker, and I had them take it in because it was something like a size 20, and then she just locked it off. The same thing, I bought a coat from Zara, and it was in the sale, and it was way too big for me, but it was like £20. It was a beautiful blue woolen coat, £20 because it was massive. So I took it to a dressmaker, and she said, well, what size shall we make this to? And I said, well, I'm easily a size 10. And she said, okay, let's do your measurements. And she said, yeah, actually, you need a size 8 in this because it's got a drop shoulder. So she said, so I will make it according to a size 8. And then she lopped it all off. Brilliant. And it cost me about 20 quid. So that coat that was in Zara originally at like £160 now costs £40. So, look in the sales, look for things that are bigger, go to a dressmaker. But that was a good quality coat because it was a wool coat. So, buy, like you say, try and buy things with that long-term thinking, or go to your charity shops, find things that maybe they're too big, but you can go to a dressmaker and have them altered, and things that you will keep, things that will last, rather than, as you say, buying things that are £8. I mean, my daughter's done it. She's so much stuff for these tiny amounts, and it all goes in the bin because it's quality. After 2 washes, it's rubbish. So do try and think about that sustainability. But I think certainly, let's try and forget about I'm a size 8, because no one is. And it's interesting, Gary, I was on a little 2-day break just in the last couple of days, and it was with a lot of dressmakers actually. And, we were talking, one of the ladies actually works for one of the news shows. I'm not going to say which one it is, but let's put it this way. It's one of the main channels in the morning. And she was talking about what she does with the clothing, because I saw so you're a stylist, so you go out and buy these things. And she, well, no, generally, no, I'm sort of altering things. And then I'd worked obviously in TV and had to sit on a sofa, and I worked with a stylist once who said, well, you can't wear that dress because it'll bulk out or the pockets are too low. And so I want people to know that when you watch people on these TV programs, or you watch newscasters, or you whatever, or in magazines, and you look at people, and quite often we can think, oh, well, they're a perfect size. Look how that dress fits. There's not a lump or bump in them. These things have been altered. Pockets are removed. Seams are lowered so that when they're sitting, it doesn't bulk up. So don't look at yourself and judge yourself against people on TV or people in magazines, because a lot of it has been altered, or certainly in photos in magazines, not real. People are taken in. I remember reading once about Jordan, and I think, you remember Jordan, and I think she once said she was a size 8. And just what you were saying there, Gary, I thought, how can you possibly be a size 8? Because we know what's going on here. So, she might have been down there, but as you say, it's all alterations, and we should just forget the sizing and just be happy,
and also, maybe if and again, we go back to that sort of like, we put ourselves down, we can have low self-esteem. If you've got a good friend that can go out and go shopping with, and then just try things on, don't look at sizes, try things on and see how they fit, and see the drape of them, and just say, oh, I could take a little bit in here maybe, or whatever. But I think it's a good idea to then start to shop with an open mind. Look out for how they're craftily coming in and trying to psychologically get you to buy something else. And I know what you're doing. And then just think, no, I'm going to cut those size labels out as soon as I get home. They're coming out. It's about what you wear, not what size you are. You're not wearing the size, you're wearing the clothes.
Yes. Yes. And don't let the clothes wear you.
No.
So, you wear the clothes. And whatever size you are, you can be incredibly stylish. As you say with Marilyn Monroe, I know she had a tiny waist, but she had the hips, she had the boobs. But look at the dresses and things. And particularly if you go to dressmakers and get things altered, you can just look amazing, whatever size you are. Whatever size you are, you can look incredible if you have a good fit of garment. That's the thing. If things are tight and pinching and everything's hanging over, having said that, some people are like, I don't care, I've got rolls out, I'm fine. If you're happy, you do that. And if you think you look great, you've got that confidence, do it. But what we're saying is that people who haven't got that confidence, you can't look great in whatever you choose to wear. You can make clothes work for you. Don't go with the manufacturers and what they are expecting of you.
Just one more thing is just that maybe you found a set of garments that you like, that always fit you, and you get them from one certain shop. So you've almost like blocked out everything else, all the other possibilities, and looking around and seeing what else is there. So don't block out the others just because you might have to go up a size.
Yes.
Don't go down there, because those clothes could be better quality, maybe much more sustainable garments, but actually better garments that suit you maybe better, but you just need to go up a size. Or there is the other way, that people wear really baggy clothes and just hide their bodies under baggy clothes because they're just like, just hiding away. So again, it's about body image, and it's about being much more positive and confidence. Yes, positive body image. That's what they need.
But then again, I have days where I just think I'm in All Saints, from the 90s, and I wear my combats and my big baggy sweatshirt, and I feel really cool. So, you go with what you want to be. I think what we're saying is just don't listen to the stereotypes and the manufacturers and the sizings. You just go with what you want to be and what makes you feel good, basically, no matter what size you are. And if you do want to wear the tiniest, skimpiest little mini dress, and that's made for a size 8 and you're a size 24 and you want to wear it, be like Lizzo, just do it, girlfriend. I'm doing it,
do it with attitude.
Do it with attitude. Do it with attitude. So just be happy with yourself, basically. That's what we're saying here. So well, I think that was interesting. I have some little tips there. And hopefully people will think about sustainability and secondhand shopping, and it's certainly cheaper, and think about the dressmaking things, because some people might not have thought about it, Gary. They might think, well, if I go, how do I get something to fit me? Well, you don't. You just get something bigger and take it to a dressmaker, because dressmakers are very clever and don't charge that much money, especially if you're buying, if it's a dress that was from John Lewis and it's now in the charity shop for £12, and originally, it's worn, but it's in a good condition. And originally that was, a Hobbs dress, so it should have been 180. Now it's 12. Go to a dressmaker, spend 20, £25. You've now got a beautiful material, dress that probably is made very well for a fraction of the price, and you'll feel fantastic. Because when you go to a dressmaker, they don't say it's, I know she said to me, we'll base it on an 8 coat, but she still took on my measurements, so it fits me. So that's what makers do.
And the thing is, and I can hear voices going, but where do I find a dressmaker from? But so how would you find it? So a bit of detective work is, one, you could go into your local haberdashery or fabric shop and speak to them and say, could they recommend, or do they know? Because I know a lot of people that do alterations leave their cards with a place like that.
Absolutely.
Some of the other department stores and places that have someone linked to them, again, someone that can do alterations, and you just say, have you got someone that does alterations? They may just say no, but they might have someone say, oh yes, we've got, so and so and so and so, here's their card, contact them when you've gone, or we'll do it directly for you. Another thing you can do is actually on local, like social media groups, sort of like, I'd say sort of like, say I live here in Minehead, Facebook, Minehead Facebook site. You could just put a little post up saying, is there anyone out there that does alterations? And you'll get a whole list of people that does do alterations. Again, you need to use your discernment or some recommendations.
Can you hear the ice cream man?
No.
The ice cream man just gone past.
So I didn't hear it. But again, so if you get a list of names, use your discernment, look for recommendations. And that's how I would start as detective if you need someone to do some alterations for you. Because it's very easy to be at home thinking, well, I know no one. There's no one that could do that for me. Yes, there is. They're out there, and they'd be more than willing to take on some extra work or do that as, you know, as a job. And many people do it as a job for alteration. So yeah.
So there you go. That's it.
Yes.
Ignore the size, because no one is a set size. I've often find actually, Gary, that I'm like a size 9. Yeah, I'm sort of in between, or a size 11. So, you know, yeah, but I don't, like I say, I just kind of, I do a lot of measurements these days, or I just go and try things on, and I just think, oh, I'll take 2 into the thingy change room and I'll see which one fits best. I don't really worry about the labels, but that's because I've got to this age. But I think when we're younger, we can, and we shouldn't worry. You shouldn't worry. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. We're not going to be here one day. None of it matters. No one is talking about the Queen, Her Majesty, and, you know, how her body changed through the years, or her sizings. We're just talking about what a magnificent woman she was. So, you know, I'm not saying we can be the Queen of England, but let's just think about ourselves and be kind. It goes right back to our beginning. Be kind to yourself. Don't put yourself in a box. No. End of season, end of sermon, not end of season, end of sermon. Gary, what are we doing next week?
Well, I thought next week we could have a little bit of an arty attack. So I feel that we need to get a bit arty again, because we haven't done anything arty for a while. So I'm going to come up with something. I haven't decided actually set in stone. So it's going to be a bit, I'm sorry I'm being a bit vague, but I'm a bit vague at the moment. It's definitely going to be arty. And we're sort of, it could be draw along or some drawing exercises. So if we'll put it out and we'll tell you what we're doing, and then you can join us live, or you can join us afterwards and have a bit of fun doing something a bit arty. You know, I'll get Rachel to stretch herself with some of the activities, so I'm sure you'll be fine.
I'm looking forward to it. I like the arty ones, because the thing is that anybody can do art. Because all we'll use probably is a pencil or a pen and some paper. You don't have
something
to
really easy. Yeah,
you don't need an art palette and a beret. So that's absolutely fine. I'm just looking here. I'm looking at my calendar, just check next Friday whether we'll be live or not. Lovely, Gary. I think we will be, because it's Friday the 30th of September.
Yes.
I don't have anything in there. So for me, that is a live date.
And me. So it's a live at 5.
Yay!
For a nice tea and tutorial.
Absolutely. Well, Gary, that was absolutely wonderful. We've had some people who've been watching along. So as I say, anybody who is you know, watching this at the end, please do leave your comments. We would love to hear from you, and please look at the playlist and please look at our other videos. Like, thumbs up, subscribe, hit the button. We would love for you to follow us and watch us on a regular basis. Right then, I'm now going to endeth the streameth. Okay, here we go. Thank you, Gary. Okay,
bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Bye. Bye.